Entrepreneurs that I've interviewed have been amazing. They have been ambitious, and they're all in the Caribbean. So besides getting information on how people do their business, I think it's also great to get those tips. And especially now during this period of time that we're living in, it's a new era for us. We're all learning how to survive. We're all learning how to keep doing business. And I think one of the greatest things is sharing knowledge. So I said, you know what, we're going to start a series. It's going to be called Surviving a Pandemic While Doing Business. And the first person that I decided to approach, I digged in my network, and everything now is online. So when you go on Facebook, when you go online, you see all these specialists telling you on how to do this, on how to survive. So out of my network, I decided to interview Miss Ife Badejo. She lives on the beautiful island of St. Martin. Now I'm going to read you her bio because I don't want to miss anything about the intro. Ife is an internationally recognized award-winning business expert focused on increasing visibility, effectivity, and profitability for her clients, committed to equipping Islandpreneurs to build smarter digital and global businesses. Ife is the founder and CXO of Produce Wealth Agency. And her slogan is innovate, focus, and execute. So I think she is a perfect person to start with. Ife, thank you and welcome to the Caribbean Rediscovered.
I am so excited to be with you here. It's such an honor. Thank you for having me. And thank you for this amazing opportunity. You are doing amazing things yourself. And I love the fact that you are rediscovering the Caribbean and showcasing entrepreneurs and innovators and creatives doing amazing things. And also congratulating you on all of your massive success.
Thank you so much, Ife. Thank you. So, I always ask in the beginning, how are you doing? And I think I'm going to ask you that question, of course. But let me also know, tell us about who is Ife and how has the last year been for you as an entrepreneur and a specialist when it comes to helping people grow their business.
So I want to go a little bit back, if you don't mind, because the COVID-19 and the global pandemic is one part of it, but I live on a beautiful island of St. Martin, and about 2 to 3 years before, 2.5 years before, we got hit by the most devastating hurricane to hit the region ever, Category 5 plus, more than 300 km/h winds. I lost my home. My dad lost his home. That year I was thriving. I was building, I was doing some really good months that I'm like, yes, I like how these zeros are looking on my account. And then that happened. And I had to start over from scratch, and I bounced around for 6 months, 6 times. A few months in the US, came back home and was still bouncing around because, the house was destroyed. And in all of that, I was able to, in true entrepreneurial fashion, was offered an opportunity to do a project management gig. And I've never done project management at that point yet, like not at that level. It was with UNICEF, and they wanted me to coordinate a project for them. And we're doing the interview with the head office in Holland while I am having to move out because the person needs their place back, and I still don't know where I'm going to sleep that night, right? And I land the deal, and I use the money for that deal to start Produce Wealth Revolution Agency, which is my company, also known as the Power Agency.
Nice.
So now the Power Agency has started out as an incubator space, a co-working space. I lived in Holland. I traveled all over the world. I lived also in the US. So I'm like, yes, this is going to be perfect. And everybody else is telling me it's perfect. I did 3 business plans. I had some of the best minds look at this thing, and it just didn't work.
Lord.
It didn't work. And so I had to make a hard decision in 2019 because I was bleeding out money. Do I continue with this format of the business, or not? And I had to humble myself and say, you know what, Ife, right now, let's just bring all the costs right down to zero as much as we can and build back up. We're not closing the business, we're just leaving the location. So that happened in 2019. Fast forward to 2020, I'm speaking, I'm moving, I'm shaking, I'm doing what I do, and boom, global pandemic hits, and 70% of my income drops in one day.
Yeah.
And I have to try to figure out, how do I move forward? So how am I doing?
Yeah.
Exactly. And then when all of that happens and everything is going awesome, a friend of mine dies, or someone else was in a car crash, or someone gets ill, and it was just one thing after the one thing. So how am I doing? I really don't know. What I know is that I'm being true to myself in the moment that I'm in. People talk about entrepreneurship. You know, they talk about it like a Hallmark romance movie.
Yeah.
You see the guy, he's handsome, you look away, he kind of chases you, you guys go on a date, you fall in love, and it's happily ever after, and you walk down with a white picket fence, and you know, that's not life, and that's definitely not entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
However, the good news is entrepreneurship ensures that you have to become your best self in order to succeed. So you have to find ways to become your best self. Also, it will show you parts of you that you had no idea were still there.
Yeah.
It will be confronting, because all of your insecurities that you thought that you could hide at a job, when you have to run your own business, you realize, oh crap, I still have those insecurities.
Yeah.
All of the things that people used to say about you, or things that you wanted to do, then you realize that there's this hesitation. And so I love the fact that you're authentic about asking how you're doing. I've learned to be that too. But I've also, and I'm still learning, I haven't mastered it, but I'm learning to be honest about how I'm doing in such a way that I honor the opportunity that I'm in and recognize that the feelings that I have.
Yeah.
And at the same, so for me, to be honest, Infra, my how I'm doing is like this. It's the best of times and it's the worst of times. That's what it is for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm going from crisis to crisis to crisis.
Yeah.
But I go to the gym now. I didn't go to the gym before. I go to the gym now.
Uh-huh.
I was not a gym person at all. My trainer keeps on laughing at me every time he sees me in the gym, because I told him that on day one. I'm not a gym person, so good luck.
Uh-huh.
But what I recognize is that there is a difference between good pain and bad pain. And oftentimes we're not taught in life what is good pain and what is bad pain. And I lean into my spirituality, I lean into emotional intelligence, I lean into mental health to try to figure out, okay, is this good pain or is this bad pain?
Yeah.
And the minute you know that difference, then you can continue moving forward, because you know that this is not going to consume you. It's very hard to die.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
It's very hard to die. This is not going to consume you. You need to continue moving forward. And so I hope that that encourages your audience and those who are listening, because when you told me that you wanted to, when I saw the email coming with the content, and then you told me what you wanted me to talk about, I'm like, girl, I got this. I got a PhD in this stuff.
Tell us a little bit about what your organization is about, for those who don't know in the Caribbean, because I know, looking at your bio, you are all over. You're not only in the Caribbean, but you are international. So let us know a little bit about the Power Agency.
Thank you so much for recognizing that. So the Power Agency is an entrepreneurship and innovation development agency focused on equipping island-based entrepreneurs to have global impact. Whenever I was looking for information about how to be an entrepreneur, I've always been interested since I got a taste at 9 years old. And if we have time, I'll share more about that story, how I got involved so early. But whenever I was searching for information, it was so Eurocentric or so American-centric. And lately, it's even more Afrocentric. You know, there's some really amazing entrepreneurs coming out of the African continent. It's Asian-centric. There's amazing entrepreneurs coming out of Asia.
Yeah.
But it's not Caribbean. It doesn't reflect my dynamic. And so that's how Islandpreneur was born. I was going through something on a date, and I posted up on Facebook, Confessions of an Islandpreneur. And it went like viral. People were like messaging me, and it was so engaging. And I'm like, okay. And someone told me, if you don't use this, I will. Then we started out, and so Islandpreneur is our flagship program in the Power Agency that combines the smart, the global, the digital, that leans into that to create a global community. And the reason why we want to do global is because here's a fun fact: 11% of the world's population lives on islands.
Okay.
And then when I started to post things about Islandpreneur, people from New Zealand started reaching out to me. It's like, how do I join that? How do I be a part? People from the Philippines, people from Malaysia, people from islands off of Africa. And so when you look at it from a United Nations perspective, there's something called the Small Island Development States. Those are called the SIDS. And then you have small island tourism economies. St. Martin is both. And so we have specific characteristics as small islands. I like to lump it up as small islands. Here are the main characteristics. We are susceptible to natural disasters. We get very hit hard on a regular basis. P.S. to everyone who doesn't believe this, climate change is real. I can tell you.
Yes.
And then we also are very susceptible to economic impacts. So, for example, the global pandemic may not have hit us as hard if people from the United States were still coming down to visit, but our economy tanked 25%. It went straight down 25% in 1 year. And then we're also susceptible to geopolitical changes. If you look at islands like Curacao, where Venezuela all of a sudden started to cut off access to Curacao and Aruba and Bonaire. And so it's really important that as small islands, we not only look at what makes us vulnerable, but what makes us awesome and what kind of value we add to the world that is of equal value. And I think that one of the things that we add, and that's why I'm so excited about this topic, is resilience. We are resilient by nature.
Resilience. I see your slogan.
Exactly.
On your banner. Yeah.
We are resilient. We know how to bounce back quickly. We know how to avoid certain things.
Yes.
We know how to recover quickly from certain things and withstand certain things. So I think that is something that the world needs. Like how my sister is in the U.S. and at the time of the pandemic last year, she was in Chicago, and Chicago was very hit hard, not only because of the pandemic, but because of the riots, or because of racial iniquity. And it was happening at her doorstep. And one day the lights went out in the apartment building, and people were like literally going through major depression, panic. They could not handle a few hours, not a day, few hours of no electricity. Now you see why you laugh? Because you live in a place, and you have lived in a place where you like, okay, we don't have no electricity, we're going to do this. It doesn't faze you.
Keep on moving.
You keep it moving. And she told me, she said, Ife, I am so happy that I went through hurricanes. I'm so happy that I lived on a small little island and I had unreliable power when I was growing up. I'm so happy because the way these people are handling this little thing, it's unbelievable. And so I think that that's what we can add to the world, in addition to many other things like creativity and some knowledge base that I think we need to add something to the world stage.
Yeah. I mean, like you said it already with the Caribbean. You know, the reason why I also started this platform is because the Caribbean it's all about tourism. That's how our income, the majority of our income comes in from tourism. But what has also always baffled me, you know, I've worked in the tourism industry here in Suriname for many years. And you see here also, we're always promoting outward to the Europeans and the Americans. And I think with this pandemic, we've now even learned, okay, but what about your fellow island people?
That's right.
What is your product? What is it that you want to present? So I think it's a beautiful initiative that you have and that others have, where we're teaching people on how to present themselves better when it comes to the business, redefining and actually explaining exactly what we're about, because hurricanes come and go. But at the ending of the day, you're going to have to figure out how to keep on going. And with the pandemic, even extra now, we realize that tourism is great, but we need to start diversifying. And following what
Yeah.
you've been doing, I noticed that you also focus on diversification. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts about that? And what do you, amongst the islandpreneurs that you have in your group, have you seen a lot of diversification the last year?
Oh yeah. Oh
Give an
yeah.
example.
In ways that I haven't seen before, or at least I was made more aware of it because I had to stop and pay attention. Maybe that is a better way of defining that. So we did a pitch competition last year called I Founded, which meant Island Founded, and it was a pitch competition between two islands. So we were going to have two winners, one from St. Martin, one from Curacao. And on the island of Curacao, there's a company, it slips me right now, but it is a company that is so sustainable focused. So if there's 17 sustainable goals, they hit like 14 of them.
Oh, wow.
And what they do is they collect plastic, they change the plastic, and then they upsell plastic. So they create products, furniture, chairs, art, whatever else, and repurpose the plastic, because plastic is not biodegradable. It will be on the planet for a very long time. And I was very impressed by that. We also found Chip, which is an e-wallet. From St. Martin, there is orders.sx, which is like an ordering app. Now, for some people that hear this, they're going to go like, but we have DoorDash, we have Uber Eats, we have, yeah, that's cool in more advanced and more established economies, but in emerging ecosystems, these are really, really good signs. There's a lot of more app development, but there's also a lot more creativity, a lot more music, a lot more art. Things of that nature. You see also a lot more people jumping into coaching and training.
Yeah.
So
Online, a lot of
and
online
a lot
business.
online.
Yeah.
A lot of online business, and I'm happy you emphasize that, because here's a fun fact. I was a keynote speaker for a conference called Remote Works in 2019, and when I did the research at that time, the digital economy was at 2.9 trillion US dollars. 2.9 trillion. I had to look up how many zeros that was because it couldn't process in my head. So I stopped at, about 100 million. I could process that. After a billion, it gets tricky. It gets blurry. I don't know how to count those zeros. So I had to literally pull it out, and it's impressive when you see it with the zeros. Anyway, Tree. In the second quarter of 2020, after the pandemic was announced, I did another quick research and said, well, let me check what this number is doing, because everything else was tanking.
Yeah.
It quintupled. It more than 5x'd. Okay? Amazon alone hired 400,000 employees in March, the month that they announced the global pandemic. Zoom, before I used to use Zoom, and people were like, but what is Zoom?
Never heard of Zoom. Never heard of Zoom in my life before the pandemic.
Okay.
No.
Zoom crashed at one point because of how many people had switched over to become digital. And so the way that I see resilience is actually smart, digital, and global. If you're building a smart business, smart to me is not just about the technology. Smart is about the way that you're thinking. And really, when you're smart, not to sound offensive, but literally, when you're smart, you are able to tell the difference between one thing and the next. So are you emotionally smart? Are you spiritually smart? Can you tell the difference of where you're at now versus where you're supposed to be? Because one thing that many people underestimate is the power of their emotions and their mind as an entrepreneur. If you can control that, you could conquer anything.
And how can it's a challenge, because especially that exactly it doesn't go together. And how do you deal with that? What are some tips to say, I want to be, especially creative people, they do everything from out of the ego. And I think with the pandemic, we saw somebody that started making a cake, or they started sewing clothes, but they weren't really business minded. But they were
Mm-hmm.
pushed into a different area of using their brain and actually creating something. How do you approach and what advice do you give an entrepreneur that's really all about the emotions? You know, somebody says something about their product and they get totally offensive. What advice would you give them?
So there's a couple of things that I would say. First of all, if you're going to be successful in life, this is bigger than entrepreneurship. You have to be able to have maturity and mastery. You have to be able to be emotionally, mentally mature and have a mastery of your emotions and skill set. Because if you don't, any complaint, anything will throw you off.
Yeah.
My my leader, my mentor, my spiritual advisor, Dr. Alicia Liverpool, she says, govern the mental, right? So if you're going to be
Good one.
governmental, you have to govern the mental.
Yeah.
What are you thinking? But that's when you're smart. That's when you're paying attention to what are you thinking. Then you know the difference. Oh, but wait, no, just now I was just happy. But what triggered me that I'm now depressed? And why is it triggering me? And where is it rooted from? I mean, we don't ask ourselves these questions. We just
No.
go with the wind. The wind blows and we go. But then everything goes when the wind blows.
Yeah.
I went through hurricane. I can tell you, it's a losing battle with some of them winds.
Yeah, yeah,
You are going to lose it. The only way that you can withstand is if you get established and rooted.
yeah.
So I was listening to Dr. Miles Monroe lately, and when I was listening to him, the late Dr. Miles Monroe, he said something really powerful that shifted my day because I wasn't having a great day. I was not. And he said this: poor people focus on money, rich people focus on things and like land, car, status symbols. Wealthy people focus on ideas and they focus on how they can express the idea.
Okay.
Money is the lowest form of abundance. Creativity is the highest form of abundance.
Nice.
Once you are creative, you can go ahead. So for the creative, they have a superpower, but they are not tailoring it. Because now the question is, how do I root myself in such a way that I can feel that emotion and still execute? That I can feel that emotion and still focus on doing what is necessary. That comes with maturity and mastery. And you have to be very intentional about it. I have lost big deals because I was not mature and I did not master the situation. Big deals.
Yeah. And
not for a lack of talent, but just a lack of maturity.
Maturity, and I think confidence. I think as you get older, you realize that you can be confident in so many areas of your life. And a lot of times within your business, like you said, as an entrepreneur, you have to show up. People want to know now who's Ife. It's no longer, okay, I'm a managing director or I'm a manager for so-and-so company. No, it's now the brand and what is your brand about? And that's when I think you start to sometimes get the fear in you because now you have to be confident. Like, I love that you have a pitching workshop because that teaches you on how to present your product. But what I think is interesting to know also, and I think that's also part of your specialism and you help with that, in the Caribbean, we are wonderful people. But we know that when you stand out amongst other people, you kind of get a look, but what's she doing and how come she almost started this and How do you deal with the criticism? Like you already said, you have to be resilient, you have to be confident, you have to be mature. Okay, that's all great, but the process to get to that point, what are tools, how do you deal with that? I mean, dealing with standing out, being different.
If anyone goes to my social media, they would think that I have always been standing out, that I'm okay with standing out, that I'm just like, woohoo, let's get this thing done. Da, 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 da. No, let me tell you the truth. And the reason why I'm dispelling something is because oftentimes we don't say the whole truth. That's one side of it, but there's another side.
Yeah.
So I want to give whole counsel. I want to give you the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Love that.
There's often times where I don't post, but because I know that on LinkedIn, if I post today, it's going to live for 2 weeks. And I know that on Facebook, most people are going to catch what it is that I'm going to say 3 days. They didn't realize that it was about 3 days or a week that I did not post anything because I was curled up somewhere, or I was trying to govern my mental, or life happened, or, they don't know that part. So social media is deceptive. But to your point, there's two things. You have to be confident in something that's bigger than yourself. If you are not working according to your purpose, then everybody gets to define what your purpose is for you.
Correct. Strong. Say that again. Say that again. I love. No. Say that again.
If you are not working in your purpose, then everybody gets to define what your purpose is for you. Not to them, but for you. So then this person is going to say, but no, you from a small little island, so you can't do nothing. No, you black, you can't do nothing. No, you female, you can't do nothing. No, you're a single mother, you can't do nothing. No, you're Asian, you can't do nothing. No, you're this, you're short, you're tall, you're fat, you're skinny, your lip big, your eye low.
Always something wrong.
Always something wrong. But the question is that all part of my purpose? And if my purpose doesn't care where I come from, how I was made up, in fact, if my purpose was so divinely and excellently orchestrated that they said, I need to put somebody like you in the islands to do certain things.
Yeah.
We always look at where we're at, particularly in this region, as a disadvantage. No, we are one of the wealthiest. That's why people travel, save their whole life's worth to retire on an island. Do you know how many major personal brands, and I'm not going to name them here, but how many major people left the U.S. and took up stock in the Bahamas and Jamaica, all over this region?
Yeah. It's knowing your worth.
It's knowing your worth.
Yeah.
So I always say, even on my most frustrating days, I live in paradise. And this is just the price of living in paradise. Because whoever is on that American Airlines, whoever came on that private jet, on that mega yacht, they spent that money to come to paradise. And I was so graced to be born and raised here.
Yeah.
I live in paradise. So that's one. Two, I like to say that you have to define you have to qualify who you listen to. In other words, if you did not build a business, you really can't give me advice.
Exactly.
And I do it with a smile sometimes because I have to be diplomatic. But if you have not invested money, if you have not dealt with depression, if you have not had to find ways to do things, if you have not danced, if you had not painted, imagine me going to legendary Ruby Butte and telling her how to paint her painting when she's been painting as long as I am alive plus.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you have to qualify who you're listening to. And then you also have to synthesize what is it that they're really saying. Because some of it is their fare and has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Who she thinks she is, because the fare is, well, she didn't get so big, she didn't leave me.
Yeah. You want to keep everybody. I think that's something that we need to learn also. It's okay to stand out. And at some point you grow, and there's a season for knowing certain people in your life or knowing certain situations in your life. But I think what's important as an entrepreneur is that sometimes when you need to go to that other season, you're going to have to leave certain individuals behind, certain habits you're going to have to leave behind. And you have to actually just really become still and hear what it is that you want to do and then move to the next level. I think that's one of the hardest lessons that you have to learn as an entrepreneur to really be unique, stand out, is to deal with the loneliness. I interviewed someone recently and she said the biggest thing that I experienced, she's only been an entrepreneur for 2 years. And I said, how are you doing? And how has it been? And she said, you know what? It is one of the most lonely experiences that I've ever had in my life, but it's the most gratifying because for the first time, I can only answer what it is that I want to present to the world. And I love that. I love that she was so honest to say, it's lonely, but but it's a good loan.
Yeah.
It's nothing negative.
So I want to address a couple of things because I am such a stickler for words because your words frame your world. If you know how to use words accurately, you'll change your life.
Yeah.
So I too used to believe the hype that for Caribbean-based entrepreneurs, it's hard for us to stick out. No, it's hard. We're not willing to deal with the fear. We don't have the courage to embrace who we were already designed to be. Because guess what? There is nobody on the planet with your exact fingerprint, DNA, lived experience. So whether you like it or not, you're standing out. I lived in Holland. I had that thing too, I grew up on St. Martin. My parents were fairly prominent, and I was tired of having this spotlight on me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to Holland. I'm going to disappear in Amsterdam. Nobody going to know me. I could dress how I want. I could do what I want. It's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Reach to Amsterdam. Walk in class. Ain't do nothing. Take up a bag. Sit to the back of the class. Everybody got asked the question. Everybody hand goes up. Ife ain't putting up her hand. No, I used to do that. Nope, not doing it because the point was to disappear. The point was not to stand out. I wanted to blend in. But I every time I did it, I got picked on.
Yeah.
So I said, wait, hold on. If when I'm trying to blend in, everybody's still choosing me. If whenever I enter a room, before I open up my mouth, people have some kind of reaction, good, bad, or indifferent to me, then I'm fighting against the grain. So then the question is, what is it about me that's so unique and that was divinely created so that I can use to serve the world? And that's when things shifted around. So that's number one. Two, I too was like, boy, this is a lonely road. Lord Jesus, this is lonely. This is dismal. And I'm not necessarily, people think I'm a super people person, but I'm more of an extroverted introvert. So I can spend days by myself. I could get lost in a book. I could, do that. But we are community creatures. We want to engage with other people. And I told one of my mentors, one of my business mentors that, and he looked at me, he said, Ife, you're not lonely, you're just hanging out with the wrong people. And I was like, ow, man, okay, you didn't have to say it like that. Could you have packaged it a little bit different, give me a little water to take down that pill?
Yeah.
And but how do I hang out with somebody else? Because I live on a small island and everybody know me. And he's like, but you behind your computer every single day talking to people all over the world. So what is really the issue? I still don't get it.
Yeah.
And so what I noticed is that my fruit is for St. Martin, but my seed may not come from St. Martin. And what does that mean? That means that after I've processed and gone through that processing, you get the fruit of all the things that I have processed. Because you're from St. Martin, and it inspires you, it encourages you, it empowers you. I give you strategies, I connect you with people. But the seed doesn't necessarily come from St. Martin. I'm connected with people in Asia, Africa, Europe. And so once you get comfortable with that, because Caribbean people are actually comfortable in a global setting because we're so used to dealing with so many different kinds of people.
Correct. And I think
but we don't use that as an advantage, and it's a superpower.
It's a superpower because you see that you're often confident even more when you're off the island, and then you come home and you start to conform to what people know of you and what they expect of you.
Yes.
And I think that is a brilliant part, and that's what I see in you. I think it's amazing. I mean, I've known you for many years, and I've seen evolution. I've seen that at a certain point you were like, I don't care. This is me.
Yes.
This is what I'm about. Yeah. I'm still a St. Martiner, but take it or leave it. I am going and I am moving. And some might say, well, who she thinks she is? Yeah, I didn't think that. But this is me.
Well, here's the thing. I'm only the person that I can be, and that's Ife. So it's not about who I think I am. I am Ife. Whenever you say who Ife thinks she thinks she's Ife.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to think that I'm better or worse than anybody else. I am focused on how do I create my best life. And have I made mistakes? Yes, I made major mistakes in the past couple of weeks. It's always a learning process, but that's called life. You go ahead, you learn from those lessons. And to your point, Sinfra, the reason why we're scared to don't care, if you understand what I'm saying, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I'm talking about don't let those voices affect who you are.
Yeah.
The reason why we are very much scared about that, I think, and in my experience with coaching hundreds, if not thousands of entrepreneurs, is that the fear is that it's going to fail.
Yeah.
And so they don't want to fail in front of other people. They need to look like they're doing it the right way.
Yeah.
They don't want to be embarrassed.
Yeah. Yeah.
You always have to keep up front. Your makeup always have to be right. Your hair always got to be done. The outfit always has to be. Listen, there are some moments in my life I thank God that nobody had taken a picture. If you saw me, you would have been confused. I looked like an entirely different person. And what I have recognized when I'm talking to millionaires and billionaires and things of that nature, because some of them are in my network, what I realize when I'm talking to those people, and I use those numbers not to brag, but to kind of talk to give the difference, right? Because many of us are not millionaires or billionaires, myself included, at least not yet. But when I'm having those conversations with CEOs and CFOs and all of those, what I recognize is that they're also learning along the way.
Yeah.
They're also doing that. But the difference is they're intentional about their learning. They're learning about emotional intelligence. They're learning about leadership skills. They're reading books. They're listening to podcasts. They're joining groups. They are in the gym. They are intentionally learning what they need to do to maintain to govern their mental.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I think that we as Caribbean people who are very spiritually inclined, we also underestimate the power of our spirit. We have an energy that's attractive. People love island people.
Yeah.
People love Caribbean folk. Any American, any European, oh my goodness, I love him. He's from the islands too. Do you know this person? He's so amazing. He's so nice.
Yeah.
He could be from Timbuktu on an island, but the fact that he's from an island, they think you must know him and you guys are cool.
Exactly.
We have certain things that are our superpowers. And one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about Islandpreneur and the work that we do with the Produce Wealth Revolution agency, which includes, yes, the technical part. It includes how do you set up a business and how do you do business models and what problem are you solving and the strategies and how do you maximize profits and things of that nature. But a lot of the work is really, the majority of my work specifically, is really getting them to see their superpower and getting them to recognize it as a value that is equal to anybody else's superpower.
Yeah.
Spider-Man is not less of a superhero because he has a different superpower than Superman. They're all superheroes.
Yeah.
And so that is my now life's work and mission. And to also, if I can speak more on a macro level, to create opportunities for all. Everybody has one of these. The minute you're on Facebook, you're connected to 2.3 billion people monthly.
So
the minute you're on WhatsApp, it's there. It's in your hand.
Yeah.
It's in your hand.
Yeah.
So for me, if it's in your hand, then why are some people living life on the beach that you can't get to, even though you're born on the island, and making money while they sleep, and you are struggling? It seems unfair to me. And so on a bigger level, on even a spiritual level, my role is to produce a wealth revolution, to make sure that as many people as possible, particularly from small islands, are able to thrive in this time.
Nice. Ife, we've come to the end. I have many more questions I wanted to ask you.
Oh, we have to do this again.
We're going to have to do this again. I think in our next session, I want to know about defining moments. We can get even more deeper. I know you're closing. What would you like to tell the entrepreneurs right now for 2021? We've been now a year and a half into the pandemic. What would you say to them? Somebody that's doing business right now. Some encouragement. Because I think for everyone, like you said, we're living in the moment. We're dealing with it. So what would you like to tell them in closing?
I am convinced, for whatever reason, I don't have scientific proof, I don't have evidence, right? I'm a logical person as well. But I am convinced in my gut of guts that the next major innovation of the world is going to come from this region. I believe it with my entire core, and there's evidence of it. There's digital transformation that's happening. We have a cryptocurrency coming out of Barbados.
Oh wow.
We have so many different wonderful things that are happening in this region right now, this second live time. We have companies like Microsoft and MasterCard and World Bank that are pouring hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars into this region so that we could get online and so that we could be digitally inclusive.
Yeah.
So for that reason, now is our time and now it's our turn. Don't waste it. Don't let a good crisis go to waste, as a good friend of mine told me.
Hey, love it, love it, love it.
Don't let a good crisis go to waste. So I just wanted to share a little bit about Islandpreneur, if I may.
Go ahead, of course, go ahead.
Because Islandpreneur is the best virtual experience if you are an islandpreneur, whether you're based in the Caribbean or the Pacific. We include all islands. Or if you're an ally, you're passionate about island people, you've seen how they are so talented and you just want to support them. Then the other thing is we are launching later on in the year a Women in E-commerce virtual accelerator to support women who have been badly hurt by COVID. Women have been the hardest hit out of any demographic in any part of the world. Women have been the hardest hit by the global pandemic. So we want to make sure that we can support them in living their best life, earning revenue, and taking care of their families and communities. Thank you so much for having me, Sinfra. I truly appreciate this. We have to do this more often.
We will.
This time
it went quick, huh? It went very quick. Ife, thank you so much. I'm going to be checking back with you. And that's also part of this series that we just keep on coming back, letting people know on how, giving different strategies, keeping you motivated. We are doing good. You've said it all about us as a Caribbean people and also what it is to do business. So be in the moment, do what you have to do, and you are at the right moment in the right place. Thank you so much, Ife. And until the next time, and much success with your workshop, with your conference coming up. Thank you, and we will talk next time. Bye-bye.